All we gotta do is go. I got what it takes to live a dream. All I gotta do is go. I got what it takes to live a dream. I broke up with this girl named World.
Welcome back to Mystery Misfits. As you can tell, this is not just a normal Misfits episode. We are rocking it out here with Skyler Juan and that rapper named Stephen. And we are here to talk, one, about the new music video that they just dropped a couple of weeks ago. We're talking about the album that Skyler Juan's got coming out here in the next week or so. And we are here just to talk with them as well because they're awesome. So why wouldn't we want to talk to them?
That's right. Yeah. So these are two of my friends here. So I'm very excited to have them on our Ministry Misfits podcast, have them tell about their new single, Homegrown. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Ministry Memphis, what up?
What's going on? So now this story and dream started way before 2021. So why don't you guys take us back to the dream that maybe started out of Hall of Faith Saints, but even maybe before that?
You should start that. You should start that. So I figured you would say that. But I wanted to look at you. I became a Christian. I was in church, but obviously wasn't really with it. Being a Christian was for 45, not 17.
Yep.
But there was a lady that used to take us to a church down in Columbus. They used to prophesy. I used to challenge it because I didn't understand it and know what it meant. And there was just things that every time I challenged God on, stuff would be said, stuff would be spoken. And one of the last things was just a clear plan that God had for my life. I was kind of hitting rock bottom at that point. And one of the things was they said I would rap the gospel. And I didn't know how they knew I did music. So I started doing music. And a dude who was on the top 8 of my ex-girlfriend's MySpace, I had a beef with him, so I was like snooping his page.
You could tell that with MySpace.
Find out he was a Christian. And we linked up because he was a Christian. So I like squashed the beef. That never happened. It was all in my head. And he ended up, long story short, he was in foster care, ended up moving around the corner from where I lived in Mass. So then we are in a group together. We're like doing the school newspaper thing. They're interviewing us. We're doing shows. Whole time Moose is hearing about us. Steven is hearing about us. And he ends up one day asking me for a ride home.
Yeah. That's kind of how it took off. I mean, me and Skyler have known each other our whole lives. That's like a quick caveat. Like we played Pee Wee football together. Massillon is kind of a very small space, and your family grew up with your family.
Yeah,
your moms ended up having children, and then here we are now. So when I was 17 or 18, getting ready to graduate high school, definitely was searching for just other Christians my age. I just came back into the faith. And my mom was urging me to get cool with Skyler. And I was like, man, I don't know about that. He kind of weird. He likes Christian rap, but it's Christian rap. And then he gave me a ride home in a Dodge AV, with the loud muffler. And we listened to the crazy song called Unashamed on After Music Stops. And that propelled me to deeper faith and deeper connection with this guy, our other home, Jeremy. And that's how the Hall of Faith Saints was birthed. It was birthed out of relationship with Jesus and each other and loving hip hop. So, that's how we got started.
Yep. I'm sure you guys enjoyed the game last week then with the blowout that
TID.
ERS. Even though I'm wearing a cap. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, so obviously we won't give age differences on how long maybe the gap's been from Hall of Faith Saints to where you guys are at now, and the friendships gone up and downs, but I think hip hop is still run through your guys' veins this whole time, and trying to figure out what space that might look like, and wrestling through whether you should do something, which should you not. So that I'm gonna kind of get to where we're at today. So what does that look like from where you guys started to how you're releasing a single right now?
You want to start it?
Yeah, I can start it. I can say, number one, Skyler and I never fell out or fell apart.
Right.
I think that's something that people who have been with us from the very beginning might think. I know when they see us now, they're like, oh, y'all so cool. Our relationship is way beyond music. It's much more deeper. Like Skyler see me at my worst, and he see me at my best, and vice versa. So our relationship is much more deeper than that.
Right. It's deeper than rap.
It's deeper than rap. No pun intended. So, I would say
that's a song.
I would say musically, we've grown. When we first got together, we were 18 years old, and we were just figuring out our faith.
Yep.
Figuring out how our faith and our love for the culture of hip hop kind of came together.
Yeah.
Now we're in our 30s. I'm married with a daughter, and Skyler's an uncle of many, and we're much more mature in our worldview. So our music is very reflective of where we're at now. And I think now we're just finding that niche, and God just put it together.
Put it together, man. So we with Citizens Akron, we started a concert that we the Together Gathering that we kind of passed over to an organization in the 2020 year, but we know what happened with that. So that we can actually be more together, right? We gave it to a central organization that isn't connected to a church body, so that more churches can come together. And so we had that event. We had to cancel the concert, and I was like, "Yo, we should still do a musical element." I think I can grab one of the homies, and we can come up with a song to communicate the theme of this year's conference. And so Homegrown is the song we came up with. And we had a tight schedule from the time I got the approval. It was like, 3.5 weeks? Yeah. Like, we wrote the song, got communicated to the producer what we wanted, got the beat, wrote the song, rehearsed it together right over here, actually, and recorded it, shot the video. Yeah, so it was real tight schedule, but we did it in like 3.5 weeks.
And now this is the thing that I always love, because it seems like the first time people actually start connecting the dots of how God-like this is, as far as God-like meaning God doing it, not like we're not talking shady here. You're talking. You've been not out of the business, but you've been professionally out of the business for 5 years.
Yep.
And then within 3 weeks, you get a beat produced, you write lyrics, you then go and record it quickly, and then shoot a music video, and then 3 days later, you're over 10,000 views on YouTube.
When you put it like that,
bro, it was crazy. It's such a God thing. I've literally, just to be transparent, I've been wrestling this week with what they call imposter syndrome, bro. Like, I'm like, literally, like, is this real? Like, there's somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's because it's crazy, bro. Like, in an industry where if you're not consistent, you're irrelevant. Right? Like, we've literally not done music in 5 years. Now, granted, I've been showing my work since beginning of 2020. Like, yo, I'm coming back, I'm figuring it out. So I've been showing all the stuff that I've been thinking through and reading and all the webinars. And I did release like a parody song as a way to get me out of writer's block. And I did release a song called Work in Progress. It kind of just tells my story of why I walked away from music and why I'm coming back. But this was like our first official release in 5 years. And man, it was crazy. Like, I literally was uploading the video Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. before I went to church, premiered it to YouTube at 12:15 p.m. We shot a music. We went live on Instagram that night, Sunday night, at like 7:30 p.m. Yeah. We only had like 200-300 views at the time, and literally, I went to bed at 1:30 with 1,300 views. 1:30 a.m. with 1,300 views. I'm like, yo, when I get up in the morning, I got to make a post to help us get to 2,000 views before the 24th. My mom calls me at 5:30 a.m. It's like, Skyler, it's over 4,400. I'm like, what? Like, I get online, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. And then all day, it just kept going up. Like, before I even got to work, it was up another 1,000 views. I literally had to go into work, and I was like, yo, because I play an important role, so they got to be able to communicate with me. I'm like, we're going to have to turn my phone off today. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to focus with everything that's happening with this music video. Like, the notifications, the text messages, the phone calls. Well, it was crazy. God thing.
Hey, no, yeah, we're so excited for you guys, and again, just to get the Ministry Misfit people behind you guys, and get some more of those views behind it as well. But Skyler, I also want to take a step back as well. When we were at the Together conference, you mentioned something about maybe hiding your talents, or as it talks about Matthew 25.
Oh, yeah.
You mind
Yeah.
sharing a little bit about that story?
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, man. So the parable of the talents, there's this master and his servants, right? The master is leaving, and before he leaves, he hands all of his servants, according to their abilities, he hands them a certain amount of money, of treasure. And so the one servant gets 1 bag, another servant gets 3 bags of silver, the other servant gets 5 bags of silver, right? And we know the story. The person with the 1 bag buries it, so when the master comes back and he's looking for a return on his investment, the one that's like, yo, I didn't have much to work with, so I buried it, figured I could keep it safe. And he's like, nah, get away from me. You know what I'm saying? You worker of iniquity, that whole thing. Yep. And because I saw myself as a person, I wear many hats. I do several things. Because I saw myself as a person with many bags, right? The 3 or the 5 bags. I thought it was cool if I buried one because I was using the others, right? I was multiplying the others. And that for the 5 years was like justifiable in my mind. But God had just, through a lot of things that was happening in the Christian hip hop industry, in my life, and seeing what God was doing through our community, through the people in our community, he was just showing me that is not acceptable to him, and that my job is to offer him everything I have back to him and multiply everything that he's given me. Otherwise, I'm just like the servant with 1 bag. I'm no different. And so that began to convict me as I began to really think about what it means to do music again.
You know, I told you this last night as we were talking through everything, but you know, a little bit of outward perspective on this too, though, is that in those 5 years, you weren't just sitting there with it buried, because you were building a church, you were building a community, developing community outreach, things like the Vincent House, things like, you know, all these different things, you know, and the amount of growth and, you know, even the maturity as far as theological education, all this kind of stuff, I think has played a huge role into the fact that now you're able to start putting stuff out there that's hitting 10,000 views in a matter of days. And it's definitely a example of what God does with people that are willing to just say, yes, use me and not as what everybody thinks that I'm supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, real quick, we've got a little bit of time here before we've got a break for a commercial here, but give us a little bit, Homegrown, give us a little message about the song, what's going on. There's some symbolism even in the video, and you know how anybody that is familiar with anything Christian hip hop knows that if people don't actually know what's going on, they're going to assume that the symbolism means something way out there, completely opposite of what it actually is talking about. So let's talk a little bit. Give us some insight. Homegrown. What's the song talking about? What are we doing?
I can go Homegrown. All right, yeah. So the Homegrown piece, the song is basically about living out, you know, your God dream, whatever your God dream is. And homegrown meaning that your God dream doesn't have to be something, this big catastrophic thing, whether that be starting a church or whether that be, you know, fill in the blank. It doesn't have to be something big. Everything is kingdom worthy. So if that's, you know, doing chairs at your local church, whether that's serving people, whatever that is, that's all a part of God's dream, is to get the people to know him and for you to know him and to love people around you. So that's the big thing, is being homegrown and staying home. I think oftentimes us being from Stark County in general, a lot of times people take their gifts and they pack them up and they go, and they don't stay here. And it's hard to be from Stark County and to really win. It's really hard. But what we want to do is we want to capture in 3 minutes, capture what it may look like, you know, if we all stayed here and we all put our gifts into where we come from. And whatever that God has given us to do, that we can see real kingdom change on a micro level, so that in the macro level, the world can be changed by the gospel. So that's what Homegrown is.
Yeah, that's Homegrown, and he nailed it, right? Like one thing that back when we were in a group, and even when we went solo and we're still running side by side, people always told us, like, y'all have what it takes. Like, why are y'all still here? Why are y'all still here? And we just felt real called to place. You know what I'm saying? Northeast Ohio. And rather than go somewhere else, I feel called to stay here and figure it out. Like, what does it mean to create and build something to where creatives like us, after us, don't have to feel like they need to leave where they're from to make it, right? And there's nothing wrong with leaving. You know, we had a distinguished citizens program in our high school that they used to come to, and I loved it. But what always saddened me is that they only came back when it was time for the recognition, right? And it's like, and it's okay that you got to go, but at what point do we come back and uplift and build the community that shaped us, that made us, right? It's okay to go out and do it, but at what point do we come back? And actually, who's going to stay there, right? America wasn't birthed with Hollywood and Atlanta, and New York, and Tennessee, all these places popping for whatever industry it is. Somebody stayed there and made it happen. And so for Homegrown, it's like, if I have to sacrifice a level of fame, notoriety, money, whatever it is, in order to stay here and build something that outlasts us for our community, for our region, then that's what I want to do. So and rather than go somewhere else, I want to stay home and figure out what that looks like.
That's good.
So,
that's
macro,
a lot of meaning
to macro, micro.
Yeah, a lot of meaning behind the song there. And also tell me, what are the lights coming from people's eyes if you go on YouTube and check out the music video? We got Dame on there looking like a superhero.
Which we'll link the video in here on our pages here soon. But give us a little bit of insight for all the so we can shut down all the Illuminati naysayers.
Marvel. Let's shut it down. Let's shut it down. So this, simply put, right, coming off the heels of what we talked about, it doesn't take with the video. We didn't want to prop up us as artists or one big event or one endeavor. What we wanted to show is that God exists in the ordinary, the mundane things of life, right? That even in the simplest of ways, right? God is revealing Himself through us, and so some of the things that help me, a lot of the things you're going to see in there is actually parts of my story that help bring me back to wanting to do music again or serve God with all of who I am, right? Us hanging out, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it looked like just hanging out, but the lights are flickering, the fact that change and impact is happening, right? That God is moving, that seeds are being planted, seeds are being watered, and increase is taking place. You know, there's been many nights where we just play Uno, but like really to the outside, we're just playing Uno, but on the inside, there's conversation happening. There's things happening that are actually giving Skyler life, that are giving other people life. And so it's to symbolize, as we pour out, we're also being poured back into, because if you look at the very end, my eyes shine the brightest, right? So it's just to show that, like you said earlier, you don't have to be the most skilled, the most talented, the best leader out there to make a change and impact for Christ and for the kingdom. All you got to do is exemplify who Christ is in this world, so that in the spaces where you live, work, and play. The sociologists say, I'll say this and I'm in, sociologists say that the most introverted person will influence 10,000 people in their lifetime, right? That's the most introverted person you can think of is going to influence 10,000 people. So, so it's to symbolize like we're responsible with the life that we lead and how we impact people. And we just wanted to show so that no one disqualifies themselves and feel like they can't be a part of the work that God is doing. That, the ordinary, there's sacredness in the ordinary, and anybody can play. Anybody can be a part of that if they would just, fall into the dream of God. So.
Awesome. So if you guys want to check out the video, we will have it up on all of our channels here soon. That way you guys can check it out. You guys can also check out in the video description in the I lost it. Show notes, that's the word. In the show notes, you'll have the link to where you can get a hold of all their other stuff. The video is out. Go watch it. The album drops November 14th. And you guys can check out that as well when it drops. And I believe, Skyler, you said you've got a pre-order because this is this is 2021. So
The link, pre-save and pre-ad for Homegrown. That helps so much. The same way we touch the algorithm on YouTube, we're hoping to touch the algorithm on all streaming platforms. And so when you pre-save or pre-add to Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, what that does is it sends you notification. It also gives us data for our email list, which is very helpful to any creator doing anything, especially like for Ministry Misfits. Sign up for the email list. But what it does is it notifies you when the song releases. That way you don't forget. And as long as you go listen that day of, the algorithm shows us love and continues to push it out to more and more people. So please help us spread this message, man. If this touched you today, pre-save, pre-add, the link will be in the description.
That's right. So go ahead, go add yourself or go add them to your list. Go ahead and also share their video, share this episode as well, because the more people that hear they're not Illuminati, the better off they're going to be. We are going to take a quick break, and then we will be back with Pastor Skyler Juan rather than rapper Skyler Juan to talk about some of the work that they're doing there in Akron and the story behind Citizens. So take a moment, check out Courageous Clothing while you listen to them, and we will be right back. This episode of the Ministry Misfits podcast and this awesome shirt are brought to you by Courageous Clothing Company. Courageous Clothing Company is a Christian family-owned business that specializes in custom designs that they create, as well as bulk screen printing of your custom designs as well. When you buy from Courageous Clothing Company, you're not just buying an awesome shirt, you also are helping spread the gospel across the world through the missions that they support, such as this here with Ministry Misfits, as well as with their own designs that have Christian-themed messages, sharing the gospel in an awesome and relevant way, or as we say within CSRM and Ministry Misfits, strategically relevant evangelism. Check out their entire line at courageousclothingcompany.com. All right, welcome back to the Ministry Misfits podcast. We are still here with Skyler Juan, and he is by himself now. We're transitioning a little bit. We want to talk with him a little bit about the work that he's doing in Akron with Citizens Akron. Our boy James, who still won't come on here. Skyler will, so we're still going to at least get some of the Citizens story.
Yeah, you like giving him a hard time. I personally got to go to Citizens for, I think it's about 2 years, so I got blessed to hear some of Skyler's preaching and work up there until I moved to Canton, which I know is tough. But so Skyler, let's hear a little bit about your church planting in Akron.
So how this all came about, I've always felt that God would at some point call me to pastor a church. It was something I was running from though. The church I was at the time, I didn't want to lead Bible study when they asked. I'm like, nah, fam. Like, I'm going to keep loving on people, planting seeds, watering seeds, and I'm going to let God get an increase. Like, that's
just
it.
Disqualifying yourself a little bit.
Disqualifying myself. But I went to a conference in Chicago called Legacy Conference. It's a Christian hip-hop conference, and I went there. One of the breakout sessions, Sho Baraka was in, and, he was a part of planning Blueprint Church in Atlanta. So they had a church planting conference called Boulevard coming up in October. So I reached out to Ron Kent and James Talbert, and I was like, yo, we should go check out this Boulevard conference. I'm mostly saying it. I know this type of stuff is on our mind. I'm like, let's just get a part of the conversation. Yeah. Hear from other church planners, stuff like that. Also, I just want to be inspired by these artists we follow who helped planted this church, right? So we go down there. We're in the middle of one of the sessions, and James looks at us and is like, yo, we can do this. I was like,
who's we?
Who's we? Who's what? He's like, listen to everything they talking about, bro. Like, we can do this. We already talking about some of these things. So anyways, all that to say, he was working at the chapel. Some months later, the chapel in North Canton, some months later, they wanted him to plant a church, and not as the chapel, but as our own identity. So we went and did that. We developed a team. He called me. I felt called to it. So I was like, great. I guess I'm doing this at 26, not like 45 when I thought.
Was there a certain moment that what I like to call the light bulb moment, or maybe the tipping point, where you're like, all right, God, I'm done fighting it. We've talked about that a little bit with Andrew's testimony. I'm done fighting it. I'm gonna join the team. And
Man, it wasn't like one light bulb moment. It was like just a bunch of night lights everywhere, or candles. But it just felt right. Like, I was still doing music. I know the relationship James and I have, and so I know our philosophy and our worldview when it comes to hip hop, when it comes to Jesus, when it comes to life, when it comes to ministry, and how we want to serve people. Moving to Akron, knowing that Swoop was from Akron and was able to make his career blossom while living in Akron up until literally the summer we moved to Akron to start our church. It's like
he was just making room for you. That's all.
Yeah, he was at Madison Square Garden last night. Yeah. See, so maybe that'll be you in a couple years.
There you go.
Maybe. But it just made sense. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna finally be able to be a part of building a church that I know that can accept me and all of my gifts, my worldview and my expression of how I worship Jesus, and through hip hop. And so that was really the light bulb moment. It was like, this makes sense. And I started to go to my church's Bible college at the time as a way to say, let me just prepare for this thing that I know God is going to do. And so before I could even graduate, this opportunity comes, and it was just like, all right. It was just kind of like the way everything happened.
You already kind of mentioned it, but this is the stuff that, we like to highlight here is that you're talking about, you go to this conference just because you're wanting to see, you're wanting to hear from your favorite artists.
Right.
The artist now is doing the same thing that God's been doing to you, which is just gnawing at you saying, you're going to do this, just go do it. You get back, and now James is now telling you the same thing. You're going to do this even though you don't want to do this. And what you found is that you finally found a spot where it's like, okay, I can actually be Skyler, be a Christian, and do ministry, and do all three at the same time,
and do hip hop,
and you're doing the music stuff, and you're doing everything else. What was it before this, though? Because you talked about the fact that you went to the Bible college that your local church here was hosting and having.
Yep.
Did you ever really feel fully connected to some of these other churches, even growing up?
Yeah.
Because we've talked before about what it's like, especially pre-2000 to be growing up as an African American male here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Even one that's grown up in the church, which you didn't necessarily grow up in the church, but you had at least somewhat of a connection.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever really feel connected to a local body until you finally stopped saying no and helped build this community up there?
Yeah, that's a great question. To answer your question, yes, I did. But I'm going to say the only reason why is because I was so used to compartmentalizing or making sacrifices for my preferences, and counting it as joy, right? Not counting it as loss, right? Like not growing weary and doing good, all those things. Like, for the sake of unity, I'm gonna put aside my preference for worship. For the sake of unity, I'm gonna put aside my preference for teaching, and for the sake of unity, I'm gonna put aside my preference for how we engage youth, and I can keep going on and on. So I was used to it was just a part of the grind, right? Or just desiring to know God. It was like, well, this is where I feel called to, and what it means to be called to be here right now is to, put aside some of my preferences or my differences for the sake of brotherhood. And that I knew no different, right?
Right. And that there though can be a dangerous attitude to get into, because that's really what we're seeing right now, especially within denominations like the Presbyterians, the Southern Baptists right now, there's a difference between setting your preferences aside for the sake of the gospel when you're talking about, like you were saying, reaching the youth, everything like that. If you're there's a difference between setting that aside and you shutting yourself down in order to keep peace within the body, especially when, the holy discontent is starting to build.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately is what we're seeing start to break out of all these different denominations right now.
Right.
Is all these people that didn't want to cause controversy, and so they just kept their peace.
Mm-hmm.
And now it turns out that them keeping their peace actually was hurting a lot of people.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, I had a lot of friends who fell by the wayside due to that.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little more tactful in how I approach things. So, I'm like, what is the scripture? Never mind, because I'm taking too much time to think about it. But being like wise like a serpent and gentle.
Right, shrewd as doves, yeah, or shrewd as serpents, wise as doves, whatever that is, yeah.
So that was me, like in these spaces, right? I was pushing back, I was prodding things, I was speaking, but I did it in these, shrewd and like gentle ways that no one really noticed, or when it manifests, people kind of felt like it was their own ideas, right? Versus like knowing that I really actually been poking this bear for like the last year. I was trying to be creative with it, so I didn't rock the boat too much. But yeah, so yeah, I did feel connected, but never fully accepted, and especially when it came to my gift of rap, right? They love to use me when it came to worship and stuff, but like my music, my portion of the worship set would be before the announcements. It would be the hype song, right? And then they do announcements, and then they get into the real worship set. Or they would have me write a verse to an already worship song, but didn't want to take the time to add my lyrics to the slideshow. But the rest of the song had lyrics, and when I come up, it's just a blank screen. Why should nobody be able to reflect on my lyrics?
Yeah, so they gave you stuff to do, but there's a lot of boundaries, or we're going to keep you to this short spot on the sideline.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we sang Oceans 18 times this month. Why do we still need the lyrics up there? You know what I'm saying? And then that's another point, right? Every time they wanted me to do something, they would ask me to write something new. But what about the last 3? Why can't we once again, we just sang Oceans 18 times this month, right? Like, why every time you want me to worship, I got to write something new and memorize it, and everybody else just comes and just shows up and plays, And so that was kind of like my experience prior to us creating our own space where, I had a body that fully accepted.
Yeah. So I know for me, like I said, I've gone to Citizens, experienced the goodness and stuff that you guys do there. Yeah. Just tell everyone and a lot of our listeners about some of the community work and stuff that goes on there, because you get the 2-for-1 deal when you're in Akron. You not only do you get Citizens, but you get the well.
Yeah, man, you get the well. So when I'll pick back up in the story, so James and I, we had a little team. We were intentionally diverse with that team. It was like a group of like 15 of us, maybe 17, 18. And so there was a guy within our group, his girlfriend at the time was not a part of our community. So James met up with her just to kind of talk about it. And she lived in Akron, happened to live in the attic of Zach's house. So when she heard the vision of Citizens, she was like, yo, you should meet this guy named Zach. He's not starting a church, but he's doing something similar that has the same heart. So James and Zach met up. We were starting Citizens. We wanted to get in community development work, but didn't know what that looked like. Mm-hmm. It was like a far off goal. Zach didn't want to start a church, didn't feel called to be a pastor, but wanted the CDC to be a part of a church. And so we had similar heart, similar vision. And so we joined forces. Excuse me. And he had about a group of 30 people that were with him. So our group of 15 people turned to 45 like that. And so we helped him start the well, helped us start the Citizens. And so the well, doing a lot with housing. They had the 60 for 60 campaign where they were rehabbing 60 houses in 60 months, did that in 48 months. They have a launch kitchen. They have a tool library for housing and things like that, so that as tenants are learning to become homeowners and things like that, they can, they have tools that they can go like to, mow the lawn.
Yeah, they can rent them out. People that don't have stuff and use them.
They have things that they can check out of this tool library to do things around the house. They have, I mentioned the launch kitchen. In the housing, they have a workforce development program. They have a building that they bought that is going to be used for the launch kitchen. So with the launch kitchen, food entrepreneurs can rent space to make their product. We're licensed city, state, and federal, which allows them to make as much quantity of product as they want and sell as much quantity product as they want. And so with that, they have like dry food storage, cold food storage, packaging and label rooms and all that. And they do camps to show them how to price out, the food and things like that. And so anyways, they bought a building that they're going to turn into a food court because we exist in a food desert, where these entrepreneurs can then grow into having a business in a brick and mortar. And so there's a few other things we do with the well. There's a lot of other things we do with Citizens. We just bought a building to be an after school program for the Vince called the Vince House for the elementary that's in our neighborhood. And so we have a lot going on more than that, but
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good little snippet of everything, and hopefully we'll get you back on some other time, Skyler. And again, tell a little bit more about what's going on in the well, and hopefully by that point, you and Stephen will be taking off, and we'll have to be calling you live from Madison Square Garden.
That's right. As long as we get tickets. Yeah. So real quick before we jump off here, where can people find out about Citizens a little bit more?
Yeah, man, you can find out about Citizens at citizensakron.com. You can also look up Citizens Akron on Facebook and Instagram. That's where we're at. You can find everything you need or want to know about us. And yeah, you can reach out, message us. We love to talk to you. Somebody will respond. So
awesome. So yeah, this has been another Ministry Misfits episode. We are going to be back next week, I believe, with a special presentation from David Waddell, who you heard from a few weeks ago. It's his presentation that he gave at Reach Gathering, where he should have been using our name and promoting us, and he refused to do it. But it's still worth listening to and very well done. So in the meantime, if you want to support Ministry Misfits, you can do that by going to buymeacoffee.com/Ministry Misfits. Support us there. We are still looking at getting some t-shirts. If you guys are interested in pre-ordering, you guys can also still sign up for the mailing list. And I believe that's about it, right?
I think that's all our announcements for today. We're going to hopefully do something for Advent, for Christmas.
We're playing around. I'm not a Christmas fan because my father has ruined it for me with him being Father Christmas. But we still figured we can do some merry misfitting.
Yeah, that's right. We'll work on that.
Yeah. So we will be back next week. In the meantime, go check out the stuff that's going on with the rapper named Stephen, with Skyler Juan, and go check out Citizen Akron, go check out the Well, go check out the Vincent House. They're doing a lot of good stuff, and we will talk to you all later.
The Ministry Misfits podcast is a production of Overwhelming Victory Flicks, Overwhelming Victory Radio, and Ministry Misfits Media. Dr. Greg Linville and Andrew Fouts are our executive producers, and Brandon Simmons is associate producer. Our music is provided by Morning Light Music and is titled Rain. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can email us at ministrymisfitmedia@gmail.com or by following @ministrymisfit on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can support Ministry Misfits at anchor.fm/Ministry Misfits or for FO1C3 credit by going to csrm.org/donate and selecting Andrew Fouts in the campaign menu. To learn more about Overwhelming Victory or to listen to our sister podcast, visit overwhelmingvictory.org.